Hey, welcome back to the videos. The previous video looked at the concept of rolls, and we examined 5 very fundamental roll patterns that we identify in Scruggs style. 4 of those, the forward, backwards, reverse, and alternating thumb being the big 4. The 5th one, the double thumb, was not as common, but it is one of the foundational rolls. Now, if you've studied those rolls and you can sit around and play those rolls, that's great, but now the most important thing about a roll pattern, once you've identified what it is how long do the notes last so that I can play it with good timing. Now, what does timing have to do with a roll pattern? Well, timing in music is everything. If I play a roll, let's say for example 5-3-1, which is one of our forward roll patterns, thumb, index, middle, 5-3-1. Now, if I want that roll to have drive, which is a term we hear in bluegrass which refers to how the notes come at you with consistently good pulse, and they come at you like a locomotive or like a piston in an engine, real consistent, and it has force behind it, it propels you forward. If I want to have that drive in my playing when I do roll patterns in Scruggs style, if I don't have a good grasp of, how long should these notes last? Are they in time or not? If I don't have that in my head when I'm playing rolls, then they're not musically useful to me at all. I mean, it's better off probably for me not to even try to play a roll if I can't play it consistently well and in time. So let me play an example of a 5-3-1 roll, hopefully played in time, consistently, with the same meter. Not only is the speed of the overall roll the same, but how long each note lasts, the duration of each note in that 3-note roll. Were they all consistent? Because if they're not, then I'm going to have a problem. Here's a roll, the same roll, 5-3-1, with no attention to detail, not worrying at all about the duration of the notes or if they stay the same tempo. Okay, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to hear that there's a pretty sizable difference in how the first roll hits you versus the second roll. Roll number 1 is your goal, to play consistently in time, identifying how long the notes last. Now, if you're going to try to figure this out, then you'll say, well, how do I know how long the duration of each note should be? Well, typically they're expressed as 1/8 notes or 16th notes in bluegrass banjo playing. And whether you're playing 8s or 16s depends on whether you want the notes to sound that way, have that duration or not, or whether you're trying to make this roll fit into a timing signature. Timing signature has a lot to do with whether the notes are 8s or 16th. Timing signature just means how many beats are in this measure and what notes are being valued in that system. So if I counted common time, which is the most common system, I'd be counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and as the way I count beats in a measure. So I've got the metronome fired up here about 60 beats a minute, and I'm just going to count at 60 beats a minute in common time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now if I wanted to play, say, the 5-3-1 roll over that, I need to figure out a way to express each note as a duration, how long does it last, so that it flows consistently over that. Well, in common time, your rolls would be expressed as 16th notes. And remember, every beat in music has 2 parts, down, up. When you pat your foot to a song, down, up, 1 and. So you got to determine how many notes am I playing on the down when my foot hits the ground. How many notes am I playing in that roll when my foot's up? Well, I'll just tell you, for common time, it's the common practice to play 2 notes down of your roll followed by 2 notes up. 1 and would have 2 notes down, 2 notes up, 2 notes down, 2 notes up. So by the time you've counted 4 beats, which is a measure, and you've put 4 beats on each one of those counts, 4 times 4 is 16. So let's play that 5-3-1 roll as a 16th note roll. has a definite kind of a pulse. It's driving and it comes at you a certain way. But if you were to slow this video down, say on Windows Media Player, it has a slow down function, you can hear better that you'll hear 2 notes of the roll. Here's beat number 1, down, up. Beat number 2, down, up. Beat number 3, down, up. Beat number 4, down, up. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I counted 4 beats, but I had 16 notes. Now that's one way to play rolls in bluegrass songs. Another division of time is called cut time. And cut time has a quicker feel because instead of playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, you condense those notes into groups of 2. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So if I were to take a song that say it's 60 beats a minute in common time, and I wanted to group them as groups of 2, then I could jump my metronome all the way up to 120 beats a minute, which I'm going to attempt to do here on my metronome. Now instead of each note being 16th notes, because I'm counting 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and like smaller increments grouped together as 2. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Now I would have to play these same notes as 8ths because I really wouldn't have the time to play 16ths anyway. I would have every note falling right in that system. Down up down up down up down up. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. This is an important distinction to make too. If you say, well, that's great, what if I wanted to play a song in common time at 120 beats a minute? That's going to be a big task because that means you're going to have to play 2 notes down, 2 notes up for every beat at 120 beats a minute. That's a lot of notes. Probably what's going to happen is a lot of the songs that you'll see written or played in bluegrass that that are 120 beats a minute, a lot of times they're being counted as 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 instead of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So it makes more sense to group the notes that way rhythmically so that you can get all the notes on the proper beat and stay in time. So again, here is 60 beats a minute as common time, and it'll be a little easier for me to play 16 notes at this speed, counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now if I switch to 100 beats a minute, 120 actually, duh, I'm doubling. Now I'm going to be grouping 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. If I try to play common time at that speed, that's fast. That's a lot of notes. 16 notes crammed in measures that fast is a lot of notes. So typically what's going to happen is you're going to count a lot of songs in cut time. Where you're playing 1 note down, 1 note up, 1 note down, 1 note up. So use the metronome to practice all the rolls that we've talked about in the previous video, but determine, are you playing these notes in cut time or are you playing them in common time? Remember, if you're playing them in common time, the notes values are 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then you would have to double that tempo to play an 8th note roll where you play 1 down, 1 up, going 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. So hopefully all this stuff doesn't confuse you too much, but just listen to how the notes feel. If you can't understand the count, go with the feel. See you next video. Thanks.